When you get into a high aspect nose-to-nose dogfight, you need to be ready for a couple of possible fight geometries. In the last video of this series, we covered what to do in a two-circle geometry. That's what happens after a bandit turns toward you during the merge. But what about if the bandit turns away from you? When that happens, we've entered into a one-circle fight. It gets this name from the shape of the ground track of both aircraft. Since both aircraft are coming around a circle to meet up with each other on the other side, it looks like a single circle. This is in contrast to the two circles that are formed when the bandit turns the other way. In that two-circle fight, you'd want to maintain your best sustained rate turn. But in this one-circle fight, we need a different game plan. The US Air Force teaches that the game plan is to transition to a min-radius fight and lead turn the bandit to align fuselages and kill. Now you might be asking, why is radius so important? Let's take a look at that. Imagine two fighters that have the same exact turn rate, but one has a smaller radius. In a two-circle fight, they would always be on opposite sides of their respective turn circle, but would never reach a point where they could get their nose on their opponent. At best, they would get a high aspect pass here. So in a two-circle fight, a smaller radius gives you no advantage. Turn rate is king here. But look what happens here when the blue fighter decides to turn the other way. When they get here, each of the jets is about 1/3 of the way around the circle. The blue fighter is now pointing his nose at the bandit. There's an opportunity for a high-angle snapshot, but the blue fighter can take this further by making a lead turn here. Now if we follow that path, we see it lands him right on the bandit's tail. That's the power of a small turn radius in a nose-to-nose fight. When we talk about a min-radius fight, we need to think back to our EM diagram. While we're at our best sustained turn rate, we're right here, halfway between the 4,000 and 6,000 foot turn radius lines. So if we want to minimize our turn radius, we need to move towards that 4,000 foot line. You can move left on the chart by lowering your speed, but we don't want to put out the air brake to do that. That's just wasting energy. Remember, energy is like money. You want to save it and only spend it on something useful. In this case, we can pull more G to get a temporary boost in turn rate while also moving towards that smaller radius line. Eventually, we'll encounter the max lift line. On our way up to this line, we'll see some shaking in the cockpit, which is called buffeting. You can also expect to see some wing vapors like this when that happens. These are both an indication that our angle of attack is getting high. If you let it get too high, then you'll eventually stall. But it's also a good thing. A moderate buffet lets us know that we're going above our sustained turn rate and working towards minimizing our turn radius, all without having to look down at our instruments. Some aircraft are equipped with the beeper that lets us know when we're at our sustained rate by giving us a tone. And when we go above that, we get a different tone. The first tone is the single rate beeper, or SRB for short. But even if you don't have one of these installed, you can use the buffeting for the same purpose. As you're coming around the circle, you want to assess the bandit and see if you're winning or losing the radius fight using these cues. This first cue lets us know we're winning because we're coming around the circle before the bandit can get his nose on us. With the bandit moving forward on the canopy but with aspects stagnant or decreasing, you're winning. The two of you will eventually head into a second high aspect merge. So what do we do at a high aspect merge? If you said lead turn, then you're correct. Now you'll be starting that lead turn with an advantage and adding some more angle to that advantage. If you keep doing lead turns like this, you'll gradually end up in offensive BFM. Now let's take a look at that from inside the cockpit. When we're winning the fight, we'll see the following picture as we come around the backside of the circle. The bandit will be near or inside the canopy bow, which means we have our nose pointed at him. We'll also see the top of his jet, which is an indicator that we'll have better angles than the bandit at the next merge. These are all good signs and a cue that we should lead turn again. That lead turn will put us into an offensive position like this. Now you might not always get winning cues, and you might end up like this. Here the bandit is still moving forward on the canopy, but aspect is increasing to the point where it looks like you'll be nose to nose at the second merge. We're going to see indications of a neutral position when we're halfway around the circle. If you look out and see the top of the bandit like you're looking in a mirror, then you know that neither of you has an advantage. Continuing around the circle, you'll see his nose come toward you at about the same rate as your nose is moving toward him. If it feels like you'll end up in a neutral merge, then it probably will be. At the second merge, you'll see a picture like this where no one has the advantage at the 3-9 line. You could lead turn here too, or you can pick the direction of the next circle. Your decision should be based on energy state. If you're at a high energy state, in this case 350 knots or above, or with your nose well below the horizon, then a 2-circle fight would be best. But if you're slow, then your turn radius is already small, so a 1-circle would be better. Either way, remember what the Air Force says. The last fighter to turn determines the fight. Do not be indecisive. Sometimes you might make a BFM error, like not pulling enough G at the merge. When this happens, you'll see this last set of visual cues. When you're losing the 1-circle fight, you'll see the bandit's motion on the canopy go stagnant or even drift aft if you're losing really badly. The other thing you'll notice is his nose will rotate towards pure pursuit. That means the bandit's profile will be this tiny sliver. This is what that looks like from above the fight. It's just like the minimum radius game plan, only now you're on the receiving end. A smart bandit will pick up on this and follow up with the lead turn just like this. If you see that happen, then it's time to go into defensive BFM. When you see this happen, you want to make sure you're pulling until you feel a moderate amount of buffet. If necessary, you can also transition to defensive BFM. You can find out all about defensive BFM in these videos. But above all, never give up. Now let's take a look at what happens when you're winning a 1-circle, which should happen when you start off with a good lead turn. Because of that angular advantage, you'll see the bandit moving forward on your canopy as you come around the circle. This will leave you with a higher aspect than we'd like for a weapon solution, but still in a much better place than where we started. So when we're here, it's time to go with another lead turn. As we close range on the bandit, we'll be moving aft on his canopy, and there's a chance it'll be pretty fast. What does it mean when you see a fighter with high LOS across your tail? It's a reversal cue. The bandit may take that opportunity to reverse and put you both back into another 1-circle fight. Or he might continue in the turn, in which case you'll end up in a nose-to-tail chase. A nose-to-tail chase is just another name for a 2-circle fight, which we covered in detail in this video. A 1-circle always takes us to a second merge, which can lead to different outcomes. It can be another 1-circle, a 2-circle, or it can lead to a third outcome, which is a scissors. This is when both jets are quickly reversing on each other while trying to gain an advantageous position. So it resembles the motion of scissor blades opening and closing. On the surface, the scissors in a 1-circle look the same, but there's an important difference. In the scissors, both aircraft are within the turn circle of the other aircraft. For the most part, the difference is academic, but in a scissors, we have the added goal of trying to build up turning room so we can properly employ our weapons. In both cases, you want to minimize turn radius. Remember, we do this by pulling enough G to go above our sustained turn rate, but without stalling the aircraft. Make sure to place the lift vector on the bandit and select max afterburner. What we're trying to do here is minimize our forward ground track. If we do everything correctly, then the bandit will have a larger forward ground track. This means that we'll eventually fall behind the bandit and can then transition to offensive BFM. One thing to remember throughout a 1-circle fight is that you're striving to minimize that turn radius, but that smaller turn radius comes at the expense of speed. If you do a better job at it than your opponent, you could end up in a situation like this where you're behind the bandit, but he has more speed than you. So be ready to start building up speed. Now let's look at how you can practice a 1-circle engagement. Starting with the standard butterfly setup, the fighter will execute a lead turn, and the bandit will follow after the fighter crosses the 3-9 line. This time, the bandit will turn away from the fighter to start the 1-circle fight. At the second merge, the fighter will make another lead turn, followed by another turn from the bandit away from the fighter. This will continue until the fighter is in an offensive position. If the fighter is having difficulty, then call knock it off and go over the problem. The most common error will probably be not enough G in the turn. Remember to watch for the buffet. If you don't see anything shaking, then you probably need more G. This exercise is a little different than some of the others we've covered so far. This one has multiple levels of difficulty. Once the fighter is comfortable with one circles, we'll increase that difficulty by giving the bandit some more options. At the second and subsequent merges, the bandit can choose to do either a 1 or 2 circle fight. Now the fighter will have to assess and decide on a game plan. And if you want to increase the difficulty even more, then you can add in lead turns as an option for the bandit. As the fighter, your options will be best sustained turn rate or minimal turn radius. But if you've been following this series, then you should know which one you need. Now let's do a quick recap. In a one-circle engagement, a minimum radius game plan lets you get around the circle and put your nose on the bandit faster than a sustained rate turn. We can get that minimum radius by pulling enough G to get a moderate buffet, which looks like this. As we're going around the circle, we need to assess the bandit for winning or losing cues. That lets us decide what the best game plan will be for the next merge. When you're winning, you make another lead turn to increase your advantage. You can keep doing this until you've moved up from a neutral posture into an offensive posture. If you find yourself with neutral visual cues, then your decision will be based on energy. When you're above 350 knots, you have the energy for a 2-circle, sustained rate game plan. Below that, you have a small turn radius, which is best for a 1-circle minimum radius plan. Lastly, if you see losing cues, it's likely that you aren't pulling enough G. So make sure you see a moderate buffet. If that's not enough, then transition to defensive BFM. You can check out these videos for more details on that. Remember that every one-circle engagement leads to another merge with 3 possible outcomes. It can turn into another 1-circle, a 2-circle, or you might find yourself in a scissors. In a scissors, your primary focus is on minimizing your forward ground track, which you can do by minimizing your turn radius. One-circle engagements are a step up in difficulty because of the number of possible outcomes. But as long as you follow the steps presented in this series and do the exercises, you should be well prepared for those outcomes. In upcoming videos, we'll be increasing the challenge even more by doing BFM with the wingman. This is called air combat maneuvering by the U.S. Air Force, and it's a significant step up in difficulty. Until then, make sure you practice your BFM skills, and thanks for watching.